What's going on, guys? It's Sam, and welcome back to, I believe, episode number 4 of the SBM show. We are here today with a good friend and client, Natalie Lawton. She is also a realtor, specializes in real estate, private residential in the East Bay area. Natalie, you want to tell the viewers a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Natalie Lawton. I work at Dudum Real Estate Group in downtown Lafayette and have been a realtor for about 3 years now. But my first job in the industry was actually back in 2017, my freshman year of college. I interned for a really cool group down in the San Luis Obispo area with Keller Williams and was really able just to get to see the behind the scenes process of real estate and found my true love.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, we have a bunch of different questions that we want to go over today, but the real goal of this podcast and this show ultimately is to share golden nuggets in the real estate industry, share some behind the scenes, maybe some funny stories about how we both got into this industry, what we like about it, things that we can see that need to be improved on in the industry, maybe some big do's and don'ts. So without further ado, let's get into it, Natalie. Okay. So you kind of touched on it a little bit, but why real estate, right? So you're a realtor.
Yeah.
I shoot real estate for a living, but what got you into this industry in the first place? It's obviously not easy.
Right.
There's so much competition here in the East Bay. What made you want to get into it?
Yeah, I love real estate, and even from a really young age, I knew I wanted to get into real estate. My aunt did it in the Oakland area, so I was able to watch her growing up and see her prosper and thrive. And my mom's in the interior design industry, and even like for fun, when I was a kid, we'd go to open houses together.
Yeah, you were saying that. Mm-hmm.
Which is just, it was so fun. Like, it really just made me grow an appreciation for what real estate can really hold as an industry, and also just being able to really help people achieve their goals is so gratifying to me. It's really cool, and especially when I'm able to help people buy in the La Miranda area. It's where I grew up, so it's really fun to help them and show them around, like people coming from San Francisco. It's just a really gratifying process to be able to really help touch someone's life and help them change for the better.
It's like the most perfect answer possible. It is a very impactful industry, right? You're helping people purchase or sell a home, which is honestly a lot of emotions involved in it. It's usually the biggest purchase of their lives.
Absolutely.
For the most part. So having someone help you guide you through that process to make sure you're not, you're going through the road bumps correctly, and having a professional on your side is you need to have it, right?
Oh yeah, it's invaluable. You got to have a buyer's agent. You got to be working with a great listing agent. Otherwise, you'll be set back a little bit in your dreams.
Which brings us into NAR, which we'll get into a little bit later. I know that's like a whole shit show.
A little bit.
A little bit. And I know it's, a lot of my clients as well. It's been quite interesting hearing their takes on it. But we'll start a little slower. So obviously we love, hearing about how you got into the industry. Sounded like you were going to open houses when you were young, doing that whole thing. And
Loved
I just
it.
personally bought this house. So like I spent the last whole year, going to open houses, actually, living in those footsteps of, going through the home buying process, which
Right.
I've seen it now so many times working in the industry for 4 years, but I've never actually bought in a house myself.
Oh, congratulations. That's
Thank you.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's, it's always something.
Yeah,
Always something
absolutely.
to fix.
Totally, I know. But
Especially in your first year in the house, I think that's definitely something, like you just got to expect things to just not work sometimes.
oh yeah, but whatever. Put some
exactly.
blue tape on it and you'll fix it tomorrow.
We're building equity, right? That's
Yes.
the goal. That's
the goal.
That's the goal. That's the goal. So tell me a little bit about why you should buy a home in 2024. Obviously, it's a weird year for real estate. I've seen it
Definitely.
being quite slow. Interest rates are still really high.
Yes.
So give us the Natalie Lawton expertise on
Okay.
why you should buy a home in 2024.
Well, touching on interest rates, they are definitely a little bit higher than what we've been seeing in recent years, but I really think that can be to your advantage being a home buyer, because the second that real estate or that interest rates drop, even by a slight hair, it's going to bring out millions and millions and millions of buyers back into the market, which is ultimately going to drive up prices. You're going to get into those crazy bidding wars. So if you're able to afford today's interest rate and find a house that you genuinely love and see yourself living in for a good amount of time, it's definitely to your advantage to buy now rather than to wait a few years down the road. Home prices have been rising over the last couple of years. Experts are expecting and are saying that housing prices are going to continue to rise over the next 5 years. So if you're able to get in the game sooner rather than later, it'll definitely pay off in the long run.
Yeah, and that was like why we bought in December, was because we knew, housing pricing was not like extremely high, but like we knew the interest rates were super high, right?
Right.
But because we were able to get a little bit of like a under market value for interest rates, we were like, we'd rather buy a house now with the sale price being a little bit lower, and we got this house for under asking,
That's great.
than buying a house when interest rates are at 5%, but you're in a bidding war with 20 other, clients who are trying
Exactly.
to, outbid you by $200,000.
Yeah, and then down the road you can
Refinance.
refinance. I
Right.
know, you hear that all the time, but it really is true, and it's an amazing way to help those mortgage payments down the road.
Totally. And like obviously the whole I was a first time home buyer this last year in 2023, and I went through all of it. I didn't know what refinancing
Yeah.
was. I didn't know anything about how to make an offer or like what to look for in a property. So if you're a first time home buyer, like what are your, say I'm a first time home buyer and I'm coming to you, and what would you say are the most important things to look at when you're a young couple, or maybe a kid in their 20s or early 30s that are looking to like buy their first home?
I would say really taking a deep dive into the inspections and the disclosures, because the last thing you want to do is buy a house that has foundational problems that's going to cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars down the road, or the roof needs to be replaced next year. I think as a first-time home buyer, it's definitely important to find a house that is going to be solid for you and isn't going to run up the bills, unexpected bills. Obviously, with any home, there's going to be a little bit of that, but minimizing that as much as possible is just going to make you feel extra safe and secure and confident with your home purchase.
Yeah, no, definitely. I completely agree with that. When that's stuff that we didn't even know, like when we were first looking at this home, was like, okay, like structural issues for
Right.
sure. And that's something that Kelsey helped us with, is like, looking at inspections and disclosures, and there's like 50 plus pages.
Oh my gosh, it is
It's
so
ridiculous.
overwhelming.
It's ridiculous. And like trying to navigate that with having zero experience. Like,
Yeah, you don't know
looking
what
for
to
a home.
look for.
Yeah, which is another reason why I think having a buyer agent on your first time as well, for sure, like when you're a first time home buyer, like otherwise I think you're just going to get taken advantage of, because
Absolutely.
it's just how this industry goes, unfortunately.
Yeah, I know it's true. If you just go to work with the listing agent, they're just trying to get the deal done as fast as possible, get the most money for them sometimes. So having someone that's really in your best interest is invaluable.
Sweet. So I completely agree. As a first-time home buyer, it's stressful, right? Like kind of navigating this industry and, making offers, and,
Right.
It's fun, but there's a lot of stress involved with it too. So being represented by a professional agent who represents your wants and needs really well is super important. And that's another question as well. Like, one big thing that I saw when I was looking for property was establishing or identifying what my needs were and my
Right.
wants are.
Oh,
Because
yes.
a lot of times I want a house in downtown Walnut Creek, but I don't want to pay $2.5 million.
Right.
So
Right.
or maybe I really want a sweet view, or I want a pool, and I want 4 bedrooms, but I don't need, XYZ. So
Right.
I think one thing I would say for sure is establishing what your wants and needs are. Could you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And especially too as a first-time home buyer, I mean, usually, or in your case, right, you don't have a family yet, you don't have kids yet, and so you don't need those 4 bedrooms, or you don't need that pool for your kids to splash in. So just getting into the game and starting to build that equity for yourself will be able to make it so much easier for you down the road to get those 4 bedrooms with the house that has a view, that has a pool. So really just making that first step and establishing your needs is key. So you did just right.
Wow, thank you. I appreciate it. So walk me through some big do's and don'ts of the industry. You've obviously been doing this for a few years now, and
Yes.
I think you've seen a lot of, things that you should do and things that you shouldn't do, from the buyer side as well as the seller side. So I'd love to just kind of hear what your take would be on that.
Yeah, especially on the buy side, I would say it's really important to get pre-approved before you start going out and searching for properties. It is so heart-wrenching to hear of buyers, and they go in and they're going to open houses, which is sure a great way to start your search, but they can fall in love with the property that they see, and then they call their realtor and they're like, oh my gosh, I really like this home. Is there any way we can, put an offer in? And the offer date is the next day or 2 days later, and it's impossible or nearly impossible to get that pre-approval in time. And that buyer then is just like defeated and they're sad because they fell in love with this property and they can't have it. And so being a buyer, you want to put yourself in the best position possible with the most purchasing power possible. So being able to have that pre-approval in your back pocket, so that if you do see a home, even like on a whim, or you see it on Instagram and you go see it and you fall in love, you're actually able to go ahead and achieve those goals and get your dream house. So definitely get pre-approved. First
so
step.
100%, I completely agree with that. And that's one thing I learned last year, right?
Yeah.
But for first-time home buyers who have no idea what it's like to get pre-approved, like walk us through that process, because I didn't know what pre-approval was, And
Yeah.
it's something that I think we should definitely shed some light on.
Yeah, I mean, there's so pre-qualification and pre-approval, and pre-qualification is more just like the basis, like, okay, yes, you're able to purchase a property, but it's not going through the nitty-gritty of your finances, versus getting that pre-approval. You work with a mortgage lender or a mortgage broker, and they'll send you a list of documents like your W-2s and tax forms, and they really take a deep dive into your finances to make sure that you're going to be able to afford that mortgage payment. They're not going to put you in an uncomfortable position where you're digging into your savings every month. That's not what they're there to do. So they're really able to get you, okay, if you want to purchase a house of $1 million, you need to put, X amount down, and this is going to be your monthly mortgage payment. So they really outline what your finances are going to be once you're actually purchasing a property. And there's so many amazing brokers out there that have so many different programs. I mean, it's definitely not a one size fits all. And even going back to the do's and don'ts, I would say it's really important to interview a few different mortgage brokers or a few different mortgage lenders, because they're not all going to give you the same rate. They're all going to have, different programs that you're able to get into. And so it's really important to go and shop around for your money.
100%. I think, like shopping around for sure, like kind of, seeing what other people offer, like making sure you vibe well with the mortgage lender.
Yeah.
Some lenders offer better rates than others. This is what I found when we were shopping around. And it happened to be that we were able to get like an under market rate with Morgan Stanley, because my best friend works for Morgan Stanley. So that ended up being the easy decision, because we got a way better rate. But yeah, shopping around is super, super important. And I think also when you're hiring a realtor too, right? Like you kind of want to find someone who represents you well.
Definitely.
I say the same thing with we shoot weddings, right? I don't ever be like, oh yeah, you shouldn't interview anybody else, for your wedding film or wedding photography. I'm not that big headed. I think I don't want them to work with me if they're not going to be our vibe or our match.
Totally.
Right? I want them to, if their wedding day, I want them to enjoy their wedding and have somebody that fits their style and their needs accordingly. So having a good idea of the market, doing the market research, I guess, beforehand is super important to know who vibes with you the best.
Right. And I see some people sometimes working with an out of area agent. It'll be their aunt or their brother's cousins, this, that, or the next thing, because they feel like, oh, since I'm related to you, I'm obliged to work with you. And that is just putting yourself at such a disadvantage in the industry, because so much of real estate is who you know, how you know them, right? And so if you're working with an out of area agent, they're not going to know the people that they need to know in order to get you the house that you want to get.
Yeah, they're not experts in the area.
Exactly.
And that's I have my best clients, my best realtor clients, they'll literally pass on jobs because they'll understand that they're not going to be able to provide the most amount of value to their client.
And that's a good realtor.
Yeah, 100%. A realtor who passes on projects because they're not just taking anything that comes their way.
Right.
They're passing on them because they understand that another realtor can do better, because they know Walnut Creek or La Moraga or all that, right? It's
we're in the people business, so you want to make sure that that client or that prospective client is really going to get the best service that they can for whatever they're searching for.
Yeah. Well, speaking of neighborhoods, we always talking a little bit about La Morinda, right? So that's kind of your area of expertise.
Yes.
Can you give me a little bit of a 101 on La Morinda? I haven't done too many properties out there. Tell me what you're seeing, market trends, how the industry is going over there.
Yeah.
Because obviously it's a little bit different over here in kind of Walnut Creek, Concord.
Oh, yeah. Real estate varies by zip code. It varies by county. It's definitely different
varies by street.
Literally. Absolutely. La Morinda is a very desirable area. Just the public schools are fantastic. It's a very welcoming, warm community. I grew up in Lafayette, and so I'm a little bit biased, but there is a reason why so many people come back after living in the city for a little bit. There's so many native people that live in the area. But it's, as terms of the market, it is absolutely ramping up. I mean, there was a property on Old Millstone Lane in the Trails neighborhood. So it runs kind of by Stanley Middle School, and it was on the market for just under $2 million, and it ended up selling for 34% above asking price, which is just absolutely wild. I mean, it's great to get 10% above list, 15, 20, but to get 34 is insane. So it really just goes to show how desirable the area is. And if you're able to tap into that market, you're going to build so much equity for yourself down the road and just really start that generational wealth for your family or your future family. That's a great spot.
Very well said. I completely agree. Yeah, like I've been there a few times. Like I've done like a few projects over there, but it's definitely a little bit different than like Concord, Walnut Creek.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot of different little niches and pockets. And what's really cool about Lafayette or the La Miranda area is that you can get ranch properties, you can get properties in the hills, you can get properties downtown. You know, it's really not cookie cutter. You can really find your lifestyle in any parts of the area, which is really cool.
So if you're looking for a house in La Miranda,
I'm your girl.
Your girl's right here. Your girl's right here. Amazing. So let's get into a few harder questions.
Okay.
Obviously, NAR is a massive thing that's going on right now. Tell me a little about your take on what's going on there, how the industry is going to be looking different come, was it, I think, July. How's that going to shape the industry moving forward? Yeah, just give me your kind of 2 cents right now.
You know, I think the biggest misconception about the settlement is that real estate commissions haven't been negotiable until now, when in fact they have always been negotiable. And it really hurts my heart to hear of stories where the client had no idea, because I feel like they didn't have a very good realtor clearly explaining to them what the contract means, where the money is going. So that's definitely hard to hear. And my fear is that buyers are going to overlook the importance of having buyer representation and going and working straight with the listing agent and going under dual agency. And doing that, you're just putting yourself at a disadvantage, because it's very difficult, if not nearly impossible, for that listing agent to hold a fiduciary duty to both the buyer and the seller at the same time. They want different things. But with that being said, I think that this settlement is going to create a very, very strong industry. I think it's going to create a very strong agents, very persistent agents. And, you know, in this industry, the only thing that's constant is change. And I'm ready to take that change head on. And if you're not, you know, why are you in it? Why are you doing it?
You gotta pivot. 100%.
Exactly.
I mean, it's like being a business owner, right? Like
yes.
You gotta pivot with the times. What we do, so video, for instance, right? I mean, look how many things are changing with AI, with VR, with so many things. Like what we do right now, like these cameras, for instance, that we're shooting on right now, they're not going to be relevant in 10 years.
Right, it's crazy.
No. Things could be changing. You gotta roll with the times. That's just how it goes. And
there's so many.
Society was 20 years ago. And think about where we're going to be in 20 more years.
Yeah, I mean, I even think about the pandemic. I think during COVID, and everyone was like, oh my gosh, the real estate industry is over. We're not going to be able to sell houses. And it was one of the most booming times for real estate and for the industry. So I can only hope that it's going to be the same with this settlement. I know, don't we all? Don't we all?
1.5%?
Yeah, it was crazy low. Yeah, 2%.
I would kill.
Yeah, me too. If there's one thing I could do, but it's all right. We're here now.
It's what it is. Anyways, so for people who don't know what NAR is, can you just tell me what is the NAR settlement?
Yeah, so it is the National Association of Realtors. That is NAR, and basically a lot of buyers felt that interest or that home prices were being inflated by realtors and that realtors are being overpaid and this, that, and the next thing. And so traditionally how it's been is on the MLS, the multiple listing service. The realtor is able to go on, it's kind of like the database for houses that realtors have exclusive access to. And you can see the compensation that you would get for selling that property, whether it's 2.5%, 2%, 3%, right? So what's changing is that's going to go away. So it's actually making it a little bit less transparent. And now you're going to have to call the listing agent and see if they're offering any compensation to the buyer's agent or to the buyer themselves, you know, offering seller concessions. So a lot of people think, oh, it's going to make buying a house so much easier or cheaper. And in reality, it won't always be. You know, first-time home buyers are more often than not scraping for pennies to find that money for their down payment and for closing costs. And if now they have to go and actually and pay their buyer's agent, it's going to bring down the amount of houses that they're able to buy, right? It's going to minimize that buyer pool that's able to afford that $1 million home. So it's going to be definitely very interesting. And I think savvy sellers will understand the importance of keeping that compensation to the buyer's agent. But if not, I think the houses that don't, or the sellers that don't, those are going to be sitting on the market for a little bit longer. It'll be interesting.
Also, I mean, if a seller agent's not offering compensation, what incentive is it for the buyer's representation to like bring the client to that property for open house, right?
Yeah, and I mean, you could even hear, I've heard of buyers even now telling their realtor, I can only afford X, Y, and Z. And so and I want you to get paid. And so if there is a house that isn't offering compensation to you, I don't want you to go take me to that property because I'm not going to be able to afford that property because I can't afford to pay you. So who knows?
So what was the purpose of this settlement then? Because that's another thing as well. Like, why did this come to fruition? Like, is it to help bring prices down for like the buyer, or is it going to be more like a greedy side to help keep more money from the seller? Like I'm even still trying to wrap my head around the whole purpose of it.
It's confusing. And I think for the consumer or all the people that felt that the real estate industry was unjust, they definitely were trying to get prices to come down a bit to make it cheaper to buy a property. Or some sellers felt like it was unfair that they were also having to pay the buyer's agents. And what I think people forget too is that the residential purchase agreement, the RPA, varies from state to state. It can even vary by county. And so in California, we're a very litigious state, and it is clearly written out in the purchase agreement and in the listing agreement where the money is going to. And so it's also your duty as a realtor to clearly explain that to your clients. They have a full understanding of where the money is going to, who the money is going to, how much, all of that. So yeah, I think they were hoping that prices would come down because of that, but I don't think that will be the case.
It's actually a really good point, and I think that's something that like a lot of realtors need to do that up front, is like explain how they actually get paid.
Yeah.
Why are they selling a home?
Yeah.
What's because a lot of it's a trust-based system,
Absolutely.
right? Like you only get paid on the sell, right, or the purchase of the home. You don't get a dime until then, right? Like
Yeah.
So describe me the process about actually how you do get paid, because it's obviously like once contracts, go into fruition and once that all happens. So tell me about how that process works.
Yeah, so I mean, let's say, your seller is selling their home and the listing agent, as of right now, how it's working is, they'll charge overall 5%. So the listing agent will say, okay, I'm going to keep 2.5% and the other 2.5% is going to go to the buyer's agent. Or sometimes it's 3 and 3 or 3.5 and 2.5, whatever you negotiate with your listing agent. And you don't get paid until the house closes.
Right.
So you have to go through escrow. You have to remove all those contingencies. You're working up until title is officially transferred into the buyer's name. And that's when you get your check at the end of the day. And I think a lot of people have a misconception about what buyer's agents really do, and that they just open doors, or, if I can go on Zillow and I can search properties for myself, why are you getting paid 2.5%? Where there is negotiations, there's going through the inspections that we were talking about earlier. There's making your buyer really feel secure and confident throughout the entire transaction. And there's so much that goes on behind the scenes that definitely doesn't meet the eye if you haven't been through the process yourself.
100%. And like for someone who just went through it, it's like we had our realtor make late night calls, negotiations. Like I think we probably took her to like 50 plus open houses.
Yeah,
like,
I was working with clients. I met them last year, so January of 2023, and we didn't get into contract until June. So I was working with them for 6 months.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm like, what year is it?
What's going on? So, it's not always, okay, you meet them and then the week later you're in contract and you get your check. It can be a very long process, 100%. And the realtor is there to stick it out with you through the entire thing.
Yeah, well, we appreciate you guys. You're very patient,
Yes, we try to be.
Well, and if you're not, it's probably like not. It's just like I think we were working with Kelsey for like I don't even know, like almost a year probably. Like looking for the house, like because we were like passively looking at first, and then we weren't really sure what we wanted, and we were like dragging our feet a little bit, and all this stuff. Okay, sweet. So NAR settlement, that's great. We kind of covered that. a lot of misconceptions as well, for sure. And I
Definitely.
think shedding some light on it as well. I think it's obviously made a lot of headlines, and a lot of it is kind of just.
And there's been a lot of clickbait. I mean, there's
fake. It's the stuff that like, oh, I just saw one the other day. It's like buyer's agents are like a thing in the past. And
right. Or it's like the mandatory 6%'s going away. Like, it has never been mandatory, nor has it always been 6%. So definitely the media can
it's usually not
be
even
misleading.
It's 2.5. Like, it's usually 5.
Yeah.
Even 6.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, I don't know. So that's the whole thing. It's gonna be interesting to see how that plays out, honestly, like moving into this year.
And I think too, it'll vary by area. I think Concord will see a difference between Danville, and which will see a difference between Lafayette. And I don't think it's gonna change overnight. I think it'll be slow in terms of what actually comes to fruition.
Personally, I think also it's not going to affect the Bay Area that much. I think there's so many agents here who know how to like run their business correctly.
Yes.
That I don't think people who like agents who don't offer compensation are not going to be taken seriously. So I have a funny feeling like just the Bay Area in general is already a bubble. Like,
I agree.
Everything else could happen. The U.S. could be on fire, and the Bay Area is still going to be charging like, ridiculous amount of money. So we're still going to be we're good, but like it hurts.
A little bit.
Sweet. Let's pivot over to marketing. So obviously, as a realtor, it's interesting. A lot of your referrals are probably organic, right? From past clients, friends, family. I know you run some ads, and I've seen your ads in the past, and I love your ads. Tell me about your ads. Tell me about how you do it. You're on Instagram. You run Facebook ads, I'm assuming, as well.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about how you market yourself as a realtor.
Yeah, so I run Instagram ads, Facebook ads, traditional Google ads. I've done a few print ads before. I mean, if there's any ad that's available, I've probably done it in my few years. And my goal with marketing and with promoting myself is trying to be able to get the consumer to feel like they can trust me before they even meet me. Because real estate is all about trust. And if I can't convey that through digital media, through print ads, I'm not going to be a success. And so I really just want to promote my genuine self and my brand, and so that people can get an idea of what it's like to work with Natalie Lawton, right? Because there's so many different realtors out there, but everyone's different. Everyone offers something a little bit more curtailed to a specific buyer. So I really try and make them as niche as possible to who I am and the buyers that I want to attract. And also, I like to see myself as a walking ad, right? You're promoting yourself. We're here now.
Yeah, exactly that.
And like if I'm in the grocery store and I see someone I know, I'm not going to run away and avoid them. I'm going to go say hi. If I see someone wearing a cute pair of shoes, I'm going to go compliment them, because if you're able to kind of get those personal touches, like in person, it's going to go a mile longer than just seeing some ad pop up on Instagram.
100%. No, and I think it really is like when you are an entrepreneur and you're a business owner, like you have to be a walking ad. Like, you have to be able to go and say hi to people, because you never know when where your next referral is going to come from.
Exactly.
That could be like a massive referral.
Yeah.
That you just walked away from because you weren't being your happy-go-lucky self.
Exactly. And I've been doing a little series called The Local Lens on my Instagram with a co-worker, Ellen Stewart, which has been really fun just to get to help people understand the La Miranda community and what it's like to live in the area. And we've also been doing a little thing called Comps and Coffee, and we'll set up shop on the Lafayette Trail.
I love that. Comps and Coffee.
Comps and Coffee. It's where I grew up, and so we'll set up shop and have details about the local market scene, and also some free Pete's coffee for people to enjoy on their walks, and some dog treats, and just a way again to brand yourself in person and to attract people more organically.
Yeah, I know this question is not even on here, but like walk me through the importance of media, right? So like you are obviously creating all this we're here doing this podcast, you're here running ads. Like I specialize in creating high quality, end content to help promote people's brands, not just realtors, but businesses, brands, like all these things, right? So walk me through the importance of why having media in this day and age is super important. It's extremely relevant.
Yeah, I mean, I think unless you're living under a rock, you're on Instagram, you're on TikTok, you're on Facebook, you're on Twitter, you're on all these social media platforms, and it really only takes 8 seconds to make a first impression. And so I think it's really important to promote yourself on all media as much as possible in the most sophisticated, sleek way possible. Because if you're not doing that, then you're just behind the game, especially being a bit younger. I'm not the traditional 40-year-old realtor, which I love because I actually think I can bring something new and fresh to clients. And so I am attracting a lot of first-time home buyers or people moving over from San Francisco into the East Bay area. And so many of those people, they're finding their realtors online. I mean, I hear it all the time. So I think it's just really important to put yourself out there on all media and just be genuine about it.
I love it. So would you say most of your clients that are reaching out to you by social media, how are you getting most of your referrals right now?
Yeah, I would say social media and just word of mouth are probably the two biggest avenues. Especially, I mean, my age, I'm 25, and so a lot of my friends aren't ready to purchase a home quite yet. But
we're in the Bay Area, and everyone here is broke because
we're a little expensive.
We're not broke, but we're broke in comparison to the Bay Area.
Exactly. So. But they go to work where they work with 30-year-olds or 35-year-olds, right. And so definitely word of mouth and social media are my two
and I think
biggest.
Also being part of a great brokerage as well, right?
Yes. Oh my goodness, I love working at Dudum Real Estate Group, and so many times when I'm meeting someone new and I'm like, oh, I'm Natalie, I work at Dudum. They're like, oh my gosh, I love the Dudums. Or one amazing family. I've heard such amazing things about the realtors that work at Dudum. Mm-hmm. And so it's really nice to have that backing of a brokerage that kind of gives me that extra boost in terms of credibility.
Yeah, no, and I actually partner with Dudum now. I don't know if you knew that, but
I didn't know that.
We offer a partnership now with them, so we give a discount.
Fantastic.
I know, right? So, no, Julie's amazing.
I've
been working with Marissa for a long time now, so I have quite a few connections at Dudum, and it's actually been, I just was part of your guys' sales meeting actually last week. So.
It's fantastic. And it's cool. It's like with Julie, the broker, the owner, if you call her, she's going to answer the phone.
Which is wild.
It is.
She's a busy woman.
She's a very busy woman. I mean, she has her family, she has her business, she has her own personal things going on. And so to be able to call her and have her actually pick up the phone and answer your question and not have to go through 3 different secretaries or, her being like, oh, I don't know, go ask this person, really just makes you feel extra confident as a realtor. And it's nice to have that personal touch from your owner.
Amazing. No, I love that. Yeah, you guys are fantastic over there, 100%.
Thank you.
And I love the new office as well, Lana Creek.
Oh, beautiful.
Isn't it nice?
It's so nice.
Super nice. Cool. I think we kind of gone over quite a few different topics. Is there anything that I missed that you think that you want to go over? Natalie, maybe industry trends that you're seeing.
Oh,
Some marketing.
Sure.
Yeah.
There's always something else to touch on.
Always. There's trust me. We could go on for hours.
Yeah,
so
for days.
Exactly.
I think in terms of market trends, especially now that we're in the quote unquote peak season of real estate in the springtime, I'm seeing a lot of preemptive offers and a lot of houses selling off market. And so I think it's really important now than ever to be working with a well-networked agent that's also in a well-networked brokerage. So kind of like we were talking about, it's just really important that your agent is local and in the community and really knows other realtors in the industry. I think buyers are kind of afraid of that offer due date and going up against, 5, 6, 7 other interested parties. Like that property I was talking about, an old Millstone, that got a lot of offers. It went for 34% over asking. And I think people see that and they're afraid, and I don't blame them. So if they see a house that they want, they just kind of want to snatch it before anyone else can have the opportunity to get it. So
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely. Have you seen a lot of cash offers lately as well? I feel that's been a big thing.
Definitely a lot of cash
with
offers.
Obviously high interest rates, right?
Yes, and sometimes that can win the property, that can get your offer actually accepted, even if it's slightly lower than the loan, because people want their money. Or if it's a trustee sale, we're seeing a lot of situational sales right now, whether it's death or divorce or diamonds or diapers, the D's.
I haven't heard that one, actually.
Yeah, there might be another one that I'm forgetting. But yeah, a lot of situational sales. And so a lot of times people just need the money right away. And so if you're able to close in 10 days or less, or they're going to take your offer.
Got it. Amazing.
Yeah.
Sweet. Well, we'll go a little off script just because I think we're kind of done with all the prompts and stuff. Tell me about some funny stories that you've had in the last few years, working in the real estate industry, whether it's open houses, people coming in being just totally full of it, or
you never know who's going to walk through that door.
I've definitely even just like me walking around in tours and stuff, and like I can tell you some funny stories about like photographing some houses. Like,
oh my gosh, I'm sure.
Absolute.
I'd love to hear them.
Oh my God, you have no idea.
But you work with a lot of personalities in this industry on both sides, whether it's the buyer, whether it's the seller.
But man.
I mean, there's a reason why realtors are realtors, because they like to be the boss, because I think their way is the best way and don't want to listen to anyone else's way. So you definitely come across some hot personalities, but makes the day a little bit more spicy.
It does.
It's not boring. It's definitely not boring.
Day in the office. Never boring day in the office. So
yeah, I don't know. Let's see. One time I was hosting an open house, and it was a little bit earlier than the traditional time slot of, 1 to 4. It was fresh on the market, first weekend. The realtor had a lot of interested parties give them a call. And so they're like, might as well just open it up a few hours earlier. Mm-hmm. And so I showed up just before 10 a.m. That's when I was starting the open house. I was hosting it from 10 to 1.
Yeah.
And I noticed there was a car in the driveway, and I was like, oh, they probably took the other car or this, that. I didn't even think twice about it. And, I open the super key and unlock the door, and I can hear voices. And I'm like, oh, maybe like they have the music on, that's so nice of them. Well, the owner was sitting in her bathrobe with her best friend drinking mimosas. And she completely forgot about the open house. In the meantime, I'm having people already line up at the door, like putting on booties ready to go in the house. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I'm so sorry. Slight miscommunication.
Mimosa party.
Yeah, exactly. I had like my coffee. I'm like, who wants coffee? Like, please, anyone take some. So yeah, slight miscommunication there, and it all worked out to be totally fine. Sure. And
what was the reaction to the owner? Was she like?
She was like, I think it starts at 1, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I was talking to the realtor, and actually she mentioned 10, and she just thought it was for the next day. It was around like Super Bowl time and whatnot, but she ended up being totally fine with it, and we laughed about it. And she offered me mimosa, I offered her a cup of coffee, and
Trade.
It was it worked out totally fine. But it was definitely something I hadn't encountered before that was a little bit different, but makes for a great story now.
No, that's fantastic. I love mimosas as well.
Yeah,
big fan of mimosas.
Who's not? Who's not?
Especially in this industry, right?
Oh my God.
Amazing. Yeah, no, definitely working in the industry, you see a lot of different personality types, and you meet a lot of funny, interesting individuals. Always keeps things very, like you said, spicy, which is fun. I don't like boring. This is why I do this for work.
Exactly.
I love being, always surprised by, clients, realtors.
Keeps you on your toes.
Keeps me on my toes, for sure.
No, I definitely can never be someone to sit behind a computer and work from 9 to 5. That's just not my thing.
100%. And obviously, like, we've escaped, I guess, the 9 to 5 a little bit.
Yeah, we work 24/7 instead of working 9 to 5.
You took the words out of my mouth, as I would say. But I wouldn't have it any other way, right? And you're doing what you love, which is,
my gosh,
same deal.
I couldn't imagine myself in any other industry, truly.
Cool. All right. Well, I think that's pretty much a wrap. Thank you so much, Natalie, for coming.
Thank you for having me.
This episode will be out on YouTube, and then we'll also be sharing all the shorts as well with you, as well as just kind of on Instagram, and we'll be like clapping and stuff like that. But,
okay, cool. Well, and if I can just say, Sam is an absolute marketing magician. There are so many times where I'm on Instagram and I'm scrolling and I see, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a really cool video. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's Sam's video. Like, why am I even surprised that Sam made it? And I think like what really sets you apart too is that, anyone can put a few videos together and, go on CapCut and hit send on social media. But I feel like you're actually able to really convey the story of the home and what it's actually like to live in that property. I just feel like you do such a good job storytelling, and I think that's what really sets you apart from other videographers and other marketers, and you just make it extra personal. So highly recommend Sam to anyone.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Natalie. I didn't pay her to say that, by the way. So.
It's just truth. It's honesty, truth.
So sweet. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
You crushed it. Your first podcast. My goodness.
Yay!